Farmers in Xinjiang, China, threw 100,000 rose seeds into the desert in an attempt to grow a beautiful garden in the driest place on Earth. It sounds like a doomed adventure, but what happened next shocked everyone. Now, it is the flowering season a year later, but this time they are not greeted by the withering of wild grasses and the wind erosion of sand dunes, but a field of 100,000 blooming roses covering an astonishing area of more than 50,000 mu. For China, this seemingly crazy plan is not just for viewing or short-term benefits. For a long time, this place has been regarded as an agricultural restricted area due to its extremely low annual rainfall, highly saline soil, and huge temperature difference. Planting delicate roses in such a harsh environment and far away from water sources is also an important achievement in desert control. But when this idea was first proposed, almost all experts asserted that it would end in failure. So how did Chinese farmers conquer the desert to grow roses? Are the more than 50,000 mu of roses in the desert? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now, let's get into today's topic. Only worth viewing? China is one of the countries with the most serious desertification in the world. The Taklamakan Desert in the Darim Basin in Xinjiang is one of the typical representatives. It is the second largest mobile desert in the world, with an area of 337,600 square kilometers, accounting for about 76% of the desert area in Xinjiang and about 49% of the total desert area in the country, which is about the size of 3.3 South Koreas. In this vast desert, the mobile sand dunes occupy 258,400 square kilometers. Some of these sand dunes can reach a height of about 300 meters. That is about the height of a 100-story skyscraper, which is amazing. For many years, farmers in Xinjiang have been troubled by the Taklamakan Desert. Sand erodes farmland, blocks roads, and seriously damages the ecosystem. In order to solve the problems caused by wind and sand, Chinese experts have finally found a solution after long-term investigation and discussion. Since 1978, Chinese farmers and plant experts have begun to build a green protective belt with a total length of 3,046 kilometers on the edge of the desert, trying to block this huge mobile sand sea and prevent it from continuing to expand. In order to improve the environment and beautify the desert, China also threw 100,000 rose seeds into the desert and planted about 50,000 mu of roses. By the end of 2023, a 2,761-kilometer green sand barrier has been formed around the desert. Until November 2024, with the planting of the last rose seedling, this 285-kilometer border lock battle was finally declared complete. So the question is, why can Chinese farmers grow roses in such a dry desert? As far as I know, the natural environment of the Taklamakan Desert is very harsh. The average annual rainfall is less than 100 millimeters, but the annual evaporation is as high as more than 3,400 millimeters. In addition, more than 76% of the surface here is mobile sand dunes. It is difficult for grass to survive in such a place, let alone planting flowers. What's more troublesome is that the blank area on the edge of the desert is exactly the area with the strongest wind and the most frequent sand dune activities. In the past, many traditional sand control methods have had little effect here, and there's almost no way to really curb the invasion of wind and sand. But in 2023, a sudden sandstorm accidentally revealed an amazing secret. At that time, almost all the newly planted haloxylon amodendron seedlings were uprooted, leaving very few. But what is shocking is that in the same area, 2/3 of the newly planted rose seedlings survived successfully. This discovery immediately attracted the attention of farmers and researchers. Later, plant scientists conducted repeated observations and studies, and finally came to a shocking conclusion. The roots of roses can penetrate vertically into the sand layer 3 meters deep, and will also grow a large number of lateral roots horizontally, locking the sand like a net. and the roses themselves have dense branches and leaves, and the plants are closely arranged, which can effectively block the wind and sand, and greatly reduce the damage of wind erosion to the surface. In order to really grow roses well, farmers and scientific researchers in Yutian County, Xinjiang, China have worked closely together. They have formulated a scientific and reasonable planting plan based on the distribution of sand, perennial wind direction, hydrological conditions, and other factors. In the desert, if the terrain is relatively flat and the water source is relatively sufficient, the local area adopts the block planting method, while in some places where wind and sand activities are more frequent and the terrain is more undulating, such as the edge of the sand dunes or the sand ridge line, it is more suitable to use the strip planting method for layout. At the same time, Yutian County, Xinjiang, China, also adopted a more scientific tree plus shrub plus rose mixed planting model, planting and building a large green belt on the edge of the Taklamakan Desert. Tall trees are planted in the most violent frontier areas of the wind and sand, like a natural barrier, effectively reducing wind speed and slowing down the direct impact of wind and sand on roses. The root system of shrubs is very developed, and they're intertwined with the root system of roses, which can not only fix the sand more firmly, but also improve the soil structure, providing a more ideal environment for the growth of roses. This combination has increased the survival rate of roses by more than 60%. In addition, Chinese plant scientists have successfully cultivated several drought-resistant and particularly adaptable rose varieties through continuous variety cultivation and grafting. These newly cultivated roses can grow tenaciously in the desert environment and also play a good role in fixing sand and locking soil. As a result, local farmers scattered 100,000 rose seeds into the desert, and the planting area reached an astonishing 50,000 acres. However, the task of planting is not smooth sailing. As we mentioned earlier, the average annual rainfall in the Taklamakan Desert is less than 80 millimeters, while the annual evaporation generally exceeds 2,000 millimeters. Such extreme climatic conditions quickly caused a small number of roses to wither. Faced with this situation, Yutian County, Xinjiang, China, launched artificial rainfall to cool down and replenish water for the roses. After this operation, the annual precipitation in the rose area increased by about 8%, successfully helping most roses escape the drought brought by the summer. Interestingly, when the Taklamakan Desert Locking Edge project was just launched, some farmers in Xinjiang were actually quite reluctant to participate in sand control work. Because it was a laborious and unprofitable thing, no one was willing to do it. Until later, the Chinese government introduced the policy of whoever controls the sand benefits. As long as you plant roses, you can get a subsidy of 3 to 4 yuan per mu. As soon as this news came out, the farmers who were still waiting and watching suddenly changed from watching the excitement to doing practical things and joined the front line of sand control. As far as I know, in order to further encourage farmers to plant roses, the Chinese government has also invested in a number of rose-related industrial projects in Yutian County, Xinjiang, and developed more than 30 products such as rose essential oil, flower tea, and cosmetics, with a total investment of nearly 2 million yuan. In 2018, Yutian County added 21,000 mu of rose planting area, with an average yield of 220 kilograms per mu. By 2019, the entire desert rose industry has driven local farmers to increase their income by more than 46 million yuan. Among them, there are 180,000 temporary workers hired seasonally, creating more than 30 million yuan in income for farmers. And by purchasing rose flowers, dried buds, seedlings, and farmyard manure planted by farmers, it has brought farmers 16 million yuan in income. By 2024, the annual output of roses in Yutian County has reached 2.5 kilograms per plant, with an annual output value of more than 6,000 yuan per mu, which has led to an increase in income for 4,238 households, with an average increase of 63,000 yuan per household. Not only that, Yutian County has also created a special tourist destination around roses. In 2024, the local area received 490,500 domestic and foreign tourists, a year-on-year increase of 55.15%, and the total tourism revenue was close to 10 million US dollars. As roses become more and more famous, the desert roses in Yutian, Xinjiang are also internationally recognized as one of the rose varieties with the highest oil yield and the best fragrance. A British plant expert once commented that the desert roses in Yutian are rich in 18 essential amino acids for the human body and have certain antioxidant and anti-aging effects. But I haven't tried these myself, and I don't know whether they are true or false. Back to our topic. Many people think that using a large amount of desert roses to plant will waste water resources. In fact, large-scale planting of roses will not aggravate water resource tension, nor will it further overdraw the ecological environment. Because Yutian County, Xinjiang has long had a countermeasure greening by water, only expanding the planting area in suitable areas. And using drip irrigation technology, the water utilization efficiency has increased by 50%. Moreover, roses are mainly planted on the southern edge of the Taklamakan Desert and the northern foothills of the Kunlun Mountains. The snow water in the Kunlun Mountains is very sufficient, and its glacier area is 14,000 square kilometers, accounting for 30% of the entire mountain area. These glacier meltwaters are one of the main sources of water for roses, and the water quality is pure and rich in minerals, providing very good conditions for the growth of roses. However, the flow of this water varies with the seasons, with the peak in summer when the ice and snow melt, accounting for 60% to 80% of the annual flow. In addition, groundwater on the southern edge of the Taklamakan Desert can also be used for irrigation. The groundwater resources in this area are very rich, with reserves equivalent to about 10 Lake Baikal, estimated to be about 8 trillion cubic meters, equivalent to the flow of 8 Yangtze rivers. Although the climate in this area is dry and rainfall is scarce, thanks to these unique geographical conditions, roses can still thrive in such an environment. If you think it's crazy for Chinese farmers to grow roses in the desert, you'll be even more surprised by what happens next. In Qianma County, Xinjiang, in the heart of the Taklamakan Desert, Chinese farmers grow about 110,000 mu of desert ginseng. Many people may think that ginseng is grown in the desert when they hear the name, but it is not the case. Common ginseng prefers a cool, humid, and cold environment. If the temperature exceeds 32 degrees Celsius, its leaves will even be burned, which is not suitable for the hot and dry climate of the desert. The desert ginseng mentioned here is actually another plant, Cistanche deserticola. It does not grow in the forests of northeast China, but in the extremely harsh environment of the desert. This plant has very special requirements for the environment: extreme drought, strong sunshine, annual precipitation of less than 250 millimeters, and drastic temperature difference between day and night. These conditions are a disaster for most plants, but for Cistanche deserticola, it happens to be its growth environment. According to the information I have investigated, in addition to being able to survive in the desert, Cistanche deserticola itself has medicinal value. Cistanche deserticola secretes a large amount of nectar and has a long flowering period, making it one of the few high-quality nectar plants in the desert. Beekeepers can collect high-quality honey during the blooming season of this plant, which also provides the possibility for the development of desert beekeeping industry. Therefore, the dual attributes of Cistanche deserticola, both a medicinal material and a source of honey. This allows some desert farmers to obtain economic benefits while also promoting the virtuous cycle of the desert ecosystem to a certain extent. So if it were you, what would you think of planting in the desert? To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.